YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back, and we had a big trade go down already, even a week away until the NFL trade deadline. Carlos Dunlap, edge rusher from the Cincinnati Bengals, goes to the Seattle Seahawks. We'll break down the trade details, and I'll give you my thoughts and my grades. We're doing this for all the big trades, and the smaller trades we will talk about in grade on Twitter. We talk about all trades once they happen right away on Twitter, also talking during live games on there, so check that out. We also have a bunch of trade deadline coverage videos already on the channel with predictions and more, what I think teams should do, things like that. Already on the channel, plenty more to come. Instagram, podcast, Patreon, trying to reach 60K subscriber goal. Please help us get there. Be much appreciated. We're getting close, so I appreciate the support. For that Patreon, bunch of extra content, junior score predictions. He's on fire this year. My bets of the week for NFL and college football. Updated playoff predictions, bonus content, Discord, a lot going on there. Link in the description for that as well. Like I said, go to that Twitter and the Everson Griffin trade. A little bit of a smaller one. We didn't make a video on that. We will make a video on all the big trades, but we talk about it on Twitter. So you see my grades there. Pretty much to summarize it, not a big risk for the Lions. Will it be enough though? Was it worth it? But Patricia, Bob Quinn, their situation. They might not have much time, so it kind of made sense to make a move for a need. The Cowboys, though, their season's pretty much over. Everson Griffin wasn't really going to help them anyways, one-year deal, so they got something out of pretty much nothing. If he would have left in free agency, they probably would have got a 7th compensatory pick 2022, so it's an A+ for the Cowboys. But to this trade, Carlos Dunlap goes to the Seattle Seahawks. We were talking about him over a week ago, how he could be traded by the trade deadline. It happens. He hasn't been getting a whole bunch of snaps with the Bengals, which was odd because he's probably their best pass rusher, but at the same time, they're young. They know they're not winning a Super Bowl right now. But yeah, he wasn't happy. They weren't really thrilled with him not being happy. So it's not a surprise. Seattle Seahawks also not a surprise. We knew they needed an edge rusher. I was back and forth. Are they going to get Kerrigan? They're going to get Carlos Dunlap. They end up with Carlos Dunlap. The Bengals receive a 7th round pick and guard/center, has experience at both. B.J. Finney was with the Pittsburgh Steelers, then with the Seattle Seahawks, now with the Bengals. More of just a solid depth guy that can play because of his experience. And the Bengals have a rough offensive line, and they unfortunately had some injuries pop up last week against the Browns on the offensive line. So you got a guy that can play center and guard, so could help them out, for this year, but, not much on the line this year. So to my grades, let's cut right to the chase. The Seattle Seahawks, I'm going to give them an A. I'm going to give them an A here. We talked about it. They're a really good team. They're a contending team, but without pass rush. One of the most important things in football, and that was kind of holding them back from being, even more than that. Can you win a Super Bowl? It's one thing to win round by round against the best and get to the Super Bowl. Can they win a Super Bowl without pass rush? And I was kind of leaning towards no. It's gonna be too damn hard to do it. Obviously not 0% chance. So they need an edge rush. They need an edge rusher pretty bad, and they got one. They got a solid one in Carlos Dunlap. He has been inconsistent over the course of his career. Last year pretty productive sacks-wise, but usually when he got the pressure, he got the sack, so he didn't have a whole bunch of pressures. But he's been pretty productive. Solid edge rusher. Obviously, he's gonna be their best one as he steps in there. Give him an A. I like Ryan Kerrigan better for them. I think he's definitely better. But then it brings up the debate of what was the asking price. I think Washington's able to move on from him. They're okay with moving on from him, but the asking price has got to be a 3rd, maybe a 4th at the lowest there. So a pretty big difference in value with Carlos Dunlap and Ryan Kerrigan. So that made sense. They already traded a bunch of draft picks for Jamal Adams. They didn't want to give up, a bunch more. But they're trying to win a Super Bowl this year, so that's the only thing it's very small, but the downside, you could have got a better player perhaps, but I still give it an A there. How much of a difference is it going to make though? Maybe that's why I held out from the A+, and it's not this huge addition. It's pretty big for them to go out and do this, like they had to do it, but it's not this he's not going to just start tearing it up and getting a bunch of sacks. It's really not how it's going to work. So, how much of an impact? He's a good player, but will he make that much of an impact? They're definitely much better with him. Obviously, that's why I gave him an A. And the value was kind of driven down there, it felt like, because he didn't want to be in Cincinnati. Cincinnati didn't really want him. So I know they kind of, in a way, they kind of stole him with the value. They weren't using B.J. Finney anyway. So I give this an A, close to being an A+ because how cheap he was, but it's not like, wow, I'm getting out of my seat, like, what a deal for the Seahawks. Pretty close to that. That's why he's at an A. That's why they're at an A. But, yeah, very good deal. Bengals, I gave him a C+ here. I gave him a C+, and yeah, the value was driven down because he was starting not to show up, but they were kind of telling him not to show up. They took away his snaps because they wanted to develop young guys maybe, and they didn't really, I don't know if they really, I felt like they wanted to win. That's why it would be one thing if you're just, they really aren't winning, but and why a C+, and I was deciding between a B- C+ because I was originally on the B- train because they got something, and B.J. Finney can help out as well. Because, like I said, they're weak in the interior spot. They're weak on the offensive line, and they had injuries, and he can play guard and play center. But is he, he's kind of mainly a pretty solid depth guy for the Bengals. He might be a starter. So that was kind of the good thing. I think you could have I think you killed your own leverage if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. You killed your own leverage, and I think they killed their own leverage because they didn't play him. They were agreeing that, just stay away. And that other teams noticed that. But then I think you still had leverage, even with that, because there are teams, multiple teams, but mainly the Seattle Seahawks being kind of the top one, that were desperate for edge rush help. And there are a couple other guys out there, but not many. You talk about Ryan Kerrigan, but the value is too high. Then you talk about Takk McKinley, but that's not a guarantee. If the Seahawks would have went and traded for Takk McKinley, there's a chance that he's really nothing, just a rotation guy, what they already have, and that's not going to help them win a Super Bowl. So they were pretty much, because the Kerrigan value was way higher, and if they really wanted Ryan Kerrigan, they would have went and got him. He could be had right now. The price is higher, but if they really wanted him, they would have went and got him. They would have Ryan Kerrigan right now. So obviously they didn't want him because they didn't want to spend that much. Obviously they don't want a guy like Takk McKinley because that's a chance that he's the same as what they already got. It's not going to help them. So they were left with Carlos Dunlap. The Bengals had the leverage there. And the 7th round pick, I don't think was enough here. And I still give him a C+. C+ isn't it's not really a bad grade. It's kind of in the middle. I tacked the plus on the end because they got two things here. Like a 7th round pick to get the offensive lineman Finney that could help them, but man, I honestly think you could have got a 5th along with B.J. Finney, almost at least, because again, you kind of had you killed your own leverage, but then you kind of had it back because the reasons I explained. The Seahawks they didn't have much of a choice, and a 5th would have been very doable for them as it was. They didn't want to spend a 3rd on Ryan Kerrigan. Again, if they wanted Ryan Kerrigan for that value, they would have him right now. So the more I'm talking about, the more I'm liking it less, honestly, but they did get two things back in return. I think they could have gotten a little more. He's a solid edge rusher for them, and you help the Seahawks out here. You help them more than I think you helped yourself out here. So I give him a C+. Maybe that's even being a little generous. But again, I keep going back to B.J. Finney actually can help them a bit. He won't help most teams, but he actually can help. He can help the Bengals. So that's the upside there for them. They get rid of Carlos Dunlap's the remaining cap hit there, which wasn't really a problem for them this year. But next year, he was due over $13 million. The cap hit was over I want to say $13.5 million. But then he had in dead cap $2.5 million. So if you were to cut him, you would subtract that 2.5 to 13.5. So so if the Seattle Seahawks, if they only want him for this year, and they don't want him next year, they can cut him, and they only lose the $2.5 million out of this whole thing. So they only are minus $2.5 million from where they started without Carlos Dunlap. So it's not too much of a hit there. But I would predict that we'll see how he plays. Nothing guaranteed there. But I would predict that maybe he's on the team next year. But it's quite a bit of a cap hit, so that's the only thing. So we'll see. But that is my grades for this. Again, you're going to want to follow that Twitter because we're breaking the news, then we're talking about the news. That when it breaks, we're also talking during live games. The smaller trades, the ones that we got a lot of content here on the channel, so some of the other trades that we can't get to, we will break down and grade almost instantly on Twitter, so you're going to want to follow that. We'll be back with the big ones. The big trades will for sure be on the channel here. I expect more to come here. We will see, though. That's going to do it, though. Appreciate you guys for watching. Goodbye.